Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So it's confirmed the rebellion is in full effect. I told you we will wait until the ISO deadline was here, and it's here. Because when the ISO deadline is here, then we find out how many banks are not in compliance. 1, 2, we find out that even though SWIFT is putting the pressure on them, well, there's a few things going on. Let's clarify this, okay? We need to sort this out. So not only is SWIFT putting the pressure on them, 1, but 2, we find out they're in rebellion. 3, we see that SWIFT, even though they're putting pressure on them, they are saying that they're going to do this thing where, well, obviously they're bending the knee to the idea, in my humble opinion, that the entirety of the system, the bulk of the system is in rebellion because we'll get into the percentage in a moment. Many of the banks are not in compliance. So what they're going to do is they're going to take the legacy messaging and automatically convert it. If you're going to do that, then if you're going to automatically convert it, then what was the point of having a deadline for them to switch completely over to ISO in the first place? Think about that for a moment. Now, look at this. And this is another reason why the banks will continue to be in rebellion. So what SWIFT is hoping is that during this transition period, even though they had this deadline and there's going to be consequences. Now, in the conversion of the legacy messaging over to the ISO messaging system, they're going to be charging them exorbitant fees. What? This is why we're going to win. This is why they're in rebellion. They're coming over to the new financial system. They're coming over to the XRPL. They're coming over to Hedera, Chainlink. You see how many banks Chainlink is, financial institution Chainlink is working with, how many financial institutions are utilizing XRPL. There's a reason why they don't want the legacy system anymore. This is great for bank coin holders. Absolutely amazing. They're going to be charging them exorbitant fees at the same time that you have the new financial system charging them almost nothing. They're going to hand that bank money over. They've been doing it. It's the setup. It's the setup. Folks, what we learned today is so impactful. Share this with somebody. I mean, you don't have to, but I would say share this with somebody. You don't have to share this video. I mean, go find this information. Send that to somebody, right? Find the articles, find the deadline, find the percentages that we're going to speak about, and send that to somebody you care about. In my humble opinion, it's not advice, not financial advice, just my humble opinion. This is powerful. So now, with them charging exorbitant fees, meanwhile, you have the bank coin companies on Wall Street and everywhere else at the White House. They're all trying to shake hands and make deals. Well, that's a fact. Do you believe that that's going to make business easier? Because I do. Let's keep that in mind. There was another aspect here. I'm forgetting something. You're letting me forget something. There's a lot going down today. And I knew that there's so many distractions right now. All the prices up and down, and the crypto market went a little dip, which is it's just some manipulation. It's all it is. Because if you're reading the real information, what's happening during the dip, just like I said it was going to happen. And I said, not only did I say it was going to happen, I said, wait until the numbers come out to show you who is buying the dip, because it's a takeover. They knew, and I said that they knew they were going to run retail out of town, and they have been. All the retail whales, whether they're with Bitcoin or XRP, it doesn't matter. They all been selling. That's what the professional companies have been saying. Okay, let's put that to the side. So all of retail has been selling, and who's been buying? And it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing, because that's whose money we want to take. We want the bank's money. We want the financial institutions' money. What has it been saying? They've been buying. Consistently, we're seeing articles every day, every 2 days about them buying. But what's the word they're using to describe it, which would tell you why the selling has offset any type of buying that could spike the price. The selling has been that massive. They're calling it nibbling. So what is nibbling? They've been buying the bank coins and Bitcoin, etc., little by little, strategically, to not make waves. That makes sense to me. That's a good strategy. That's a good strategy. All of this happening, all of that serving as a distraction, all this price volatility at times where you have the Fed and the banking system, not only in the US, but globally, on fire. You don't think that they're distracting people from that? When finally the mainstream media was putting out all this information about it, then all of a sudden everybody's eyes are being diverted to somewhere else. Whether it's a political thing, geopolitical thing, or the prices going up and down, their minds are diverted somewhere else when it really should be on those banks and those bank accounts that everybody's dealing with because they're in trouble. But to each his own, I think is a distraction. Let's get back to this information. This all ties in together. They're setting up for the explosion that retail is not going to be there for, and they don't know about. And I don't consider you retail. I just consider you special, exceptional, whatever. You're a part of a historic group, period. And there's no one that can tell me different. There's only a little bit of us, and we're on something major. Okay, so let me read this little tidbit to you. Maybe it'll jog my memory. I have some good information here. So, percentage. That's what I almost forgot. You almost let me forget. If you like this type of information, take those powerful hands and hit that like button. Folks, I knew it. So, according to a bunch of different companies, you can look this up. Swift numbers haven't come out yet, but the independent research companies have come out with the numbers. Over 60%. 60% of Swift banks have not complied with or acquiesced to the ISO 20022 deadline. And I assure you, it has nothing to do with ISO and everything to do with the Swift system. The Chinese alternative to Swift is thriving. The Russian alternative to Swift is thriving. The DLT alternative to Swift is thriving. That's whether you choose the XRPL or anything based on Stellar or anything. I mean, they're quietly doing it, but they're proliferating at a massive rate. Everyone's doing well. And the banks are scratching their heads like, wait a minute. I'm going to piece this together. Wait a minute. And look all of this up if you haven't watched the last few videos. So if you don't know this information, you didn't see the screenshots of the information. I always put up screenshots that lead one to certain information. I do my best. I'm not perfect, but I do my best. The banks are scratching their heads and saying, wait a minute, the Fed doesn't want to give us the percentage that would be respectful. That would be good for holding our reserves. Okay, so that's disrespect. We're going to take our business elsewhere. Wait a minute. I'm speaking as though I'm a bank. Wait a minute. The U.S. Treasury is literally setting everything on fire. Even though although the Fed set the fire initially, is trying to take actions to mitigate certain problems. No, the U.S. Treasury said, no, we're going to light things on fire. Those who know, you know what I'm speaking about. They are a big cause of a liquidity problem. That's another thing. So the banks are scratching their head like, wait a minute, this is just mounting up. Now you have Swift saying, hey, listen, you know what? You didn't want to do what we told you to do. We're going to charge you extra fees on top of the other fees they already get charged. What? We're going to take over. XRP is going to dominate. Nobody wants to be charged extra for Swift so they can take more capital for a system that barely functions. I'm not just saying this, folks. You can look this up. Use professional sources and look this up. All right, let me read this little tidbit to you. 60%. 60. I thought it was going to be a little lower than that. 60% are not in compliance. They've had all this time, years. 60%. They're in full rebellion. And we already knew it was coming because of their verbiage in their transcripts. There's been a war. People don't get this. They don't want to believe it. I'm not trying to force anything into someone's mind. If you do the research, you see it. There's been a war for years between the small and medium-sized banks and the commercial banks. And then there's friction between the large commercial banks and the central banks. This has been going on for a long time. And I saw the split happen when we read that document where I can't remember who it was. Was it the ECB? Or were they just financial representatives of the European financial system? I believe it was it was an ECB document we read, and they were outwardly going against the commercial banks when it came to deposits. They considered it an option. We read it here on the channel, screenshot it and everything. It's a fact. My apology, a little hair got in my mouth. I shaved a little bit. You see that right now? There's a little something. I don't know. I try to stay away from superficialities, but you can't let it go on for too long, no matter how much of a unworldly philosopher you want to be. You gotta shape up after a little bit, right? Anyway, the ECB, they put out a document and they considered an option that would run a high risk of taking deposits from the banks, which is what the banks asked them not to do. They say, hey, listen, with all this CBDC stuff and stablecoin stuff, then the customer can go directly to you. Why would they go to us? So are you trying to step on our toes? And the central banks as a whole, because the Fed addressed it, and at the time the Fed was, we're against CBDCs. Right. Okay, I'm gonna keep that in mind. And the ECB spoke on it, and I believe the Bank of England spoke on it, and they said it was within that same year because it was a hot topic at the time, and they all said, "Listen, no, we're not trying. We don't want to upset the system. We don't want to take your deposits." And then that document dropped, and it was like, "Whoa, what are you talking about? What are you doing here?" And that's when you start to see an uptick in the concern in a lot of the banking transcripts when they have meetings of them asking this verbiage about, so there's been this major, that was a split before. There's a major split now after that. So they're saying we need to look out for ourselves. Okay, we don't need an intermediary, really. We can use our preferred DLTs, the XRPL, Stellar, Chainlink, Solana, a combination of them. They're all going to be conglomerations and congealings of systems. They're all going to be that. And so the banks are saying to themselves, we could just sort of do business almost independently of the central banks since they're going against us. And that's what you see them testing the waters. I'm not saying that they're going to 100% do that. I'm not at absolutes. I'm saying you're seeing them test the waters. And that's why interbank payments. You remember those transactions they reported? 716. Look this up if you didn't see that article. 716 transactions over $1 million on the XRPL within the last month and a half. And that was at that time. That was like a week or two ago? How much did they not catch? How much did they not report? What was that about? Anybody know? You ever find out? They testing the systems? Maybe? XRPL is made for banks. Maybe? I don't know. Is it a possibility? Do you just write it off completely? I'm asking questions. The questions are the most important thing in reality. Before you get to the answer, there is the question. Before you get to a manifestation, there is potentiality. Potentiality and questions go hand in hand. But first comes the questions. First comes the potentiality. And then we get to the answers. And it takes a powerful question to get to a powerful answer. 60%. Okay, let me read this little tidbit to you here. Okay, we're getting deep. You okay? You follow me? You good? I'm okay. I'm good. All right. I appreciate you asking. Yeah, I'm just going to pretend like you asked me. Yeah, I'm okay. I guess I got a little bit of rest, I suppose. I feel better when I'm researching. I feel better when I'm researching. That's all. I'll leave it at that. All right. So the swift deadline for the ISO 20022 migration, specifically for cross-border payment instructions, is November 22nd, 2025. By the way, if you haven't already, take those powerful hands, hit that like button. The end of coexistence is what they're calling it, but it doesn't make sense because it's not. I don't understand this dichotomy, this contradictory speech. Is this not lying? Why would you say it's the end of coexistence if you're still going to continue legacy messaging? But let me read this little tidbit to you. November 22nd, 2025 marks the end of the coexistence period where financial institutions could exchange both the legacy message types and the new ISO message types. It says for cross-border payment instructions, MT103 and MT202 series. All right. And that's coming from SWIFT itself. All right, so let's take it to be factual information. It's from Swift's website, which we've referenced many, many times on the channel. They have a wealth of information over there if you choose to read such. This is mandatory standard. After this date, the ISO 20022 format will become the mandatory standard for these specific cross-border payment instruction messages for financial institutions. Yes, but that's the thing. It's not. Okay, so they were saying this entire time. Now they come out with this, we're going to allow you to use legacy messaging types, but we're going to charge you extra money. And that's on top of all the original fees, which they pay a boatload of them. You don't see how this is bad for business. This is bad for business for them and great for business when it comes to the Bitcoin companies. And I believe that companies like Ripple, BlackRock, who are in lockstep with each other, make no mistake about it. And all these other Bitcoin companies know about this. They knew about this. And that's why they're taking advantage. They're having all these meetings at different banks, and then they're having meetings with Wall Street, and you have a lot of the central bankers, reaching out, taking meetings and speaking about, private DLTs and how they connect to the system. You saw that all of a sudden. Oh, who has been at the forefront? Now they want to give credit. You saw those documents come out the last week. Oh, who's been at the forefront of DLT? It's been the private sector. So we should look to and collaborate a little bit further with the private sector. Right. Just out of nowhere, all of a sudden. I just find that interesting, and I believe I know why. You have to switch up your agenda, your technique, your verbiage, because now you can't catch them. They're going to dominate, especially when it comes to the whole stable coin Trojan horse, and that's what they are. You know it. And in order to reel stable coins in, you need, because they are... I view stable coins as a Trojan horse or a weapon at this point. I do. You don't have to believe that, and I'm not asking you to agree with me. I only speak for myself. And I believe the ECB knows that. Look how much they've come out against stablecoins recently, even though they're going to continue to use them. I believe the Bank of England knows that. They've come out against stablecoins. Hey, just use tokenized deposits. And simultaneously with that, they've been getting very lovey-dovey. Oh, we love the private sector. All of a sudden, they love the private sector. Don't get me wrong. They've been working with companies like Ripple for years, but now they're just showing love to everybody. We got to bring these guys in. Right. Okay, let's continue on here. We're playing with ideas. We're putting the puzzle together, and the picture's getting a little bit more clear. Now, it says this. It says, since the deadline for the mandatory use of ISO 20022, I like to say the numbers. Like I could just say ISO, but I just like it feels better with that 20. It makes it feel powerful for some reason. I don't know. It's just I like that. For cross-border payment instructions is today. The CBR Plus is today, November 22nd, 2025. It says because the deadline is right now, the situation is fluid and final compliance numbers are still being tallied by SWIFT. Remember, I said, so we'll look at the numbers from SWIFT, which I hope they put out honest numbers. We'll see. And you may say to yourself, well, Mick, how are you going to know if they're putting out honest numbers or not? Because like I said, there's independent. Thank goodness for independent companies looking into this. And we're going away what they say versus independent companies. All right, now let's continue. It says here, one widely reported industry projection earlier this year estimated that only 40% of SWIFT network was expected to be fully compliant by November 2025. And that was from Brown Brothers Harriman, in case you want to look into it. OK. All right. This suggests that the percentage of banks not fully compliant with the new standards requirements for cross-border payments could be as high as 60%. I'm going to get to that part where they tell you about the Here we go. Compliance versus usage. The non-compliant institutions are likely those that have not fully upgraded. But why didn't they upgrade? It's rebellion. It's a show of force, a show that we're standing against you and your system, and we're going towards this new system. That's why Ripple every once in a while comes out and says, hey, we could take some business from SWIFT. They're kicking SWIFT while they're down. They're letting SWIFT know. We can take this business from you. You want to work with us? And that's such great leverage. It is. If you're SWIFT, do you take the chance? You have offended and taken advantage of many of these banks, and they want something better, and there is something better. You tell me what happens from there. Also, SWIFT is a highly siloed system now. Increasingly going to become that forward into the future as well. How do you compete with something that's fully unleashed and not siloed? rapidly gaining power, like the XRPL or Chainlink or Solana, etc. How do you compete with that? How do you compete with a conglomeration of that system that has the peak? I beg your finest pardon. Air in my chest. I beg your finest pardon. How do you compete with something like that that's at the peak of technology? I hope I said that right. My apologies if I did not. You can't. You can't. So you either work with them or you compete against them and you lose. Slowly, but you lose inevitably. Or you work with them and the inevitable happens anyway. It's like a forked road. No matter which path you choose leads to the same destination. You work with them. Ripple, Chainlink, Solana, Hedera, Cardano, Stellar. They gain massive amounts of value and power. Of course, that means that their native tokens are going to absolutely explode. We know, therefore. But then they take your place. Not only your place, they take the place of the IMF. They parallel a sort of like non-banking financial institution parallels to central banks, actually, because they issue value. What do you think stablecoin is? They issue value. Of course, they're issuing value based upon value that's placed into the system. But initially, there's no value placed into that system. So you just have this allotment of XRP or XLM or Hedera. That's essentially issuing value, right? Same as, well, I won't say like a central bank, but like like a treasury, like U.S. Treasury does, right? That's an interesting aspect to keep in mind. Folks, we're looking at the rise of an entirely new system that is rapidly devouring the old system. And that system is simply a part of a new global system that's rising. The new financial system is one aspect. It's like the legs of this new system that's rising as a whole, that other parts of it would be robotics and AI, etc. All right, let's continue on here. So it says here, for these institutions, Swift's network will automatically translate their legacy MT messages into the new MX ISO 20022 format and vice versa. So now this is going to be interesting, folks. This is going to be very interesting. How many drop payments are there when this occurs? How well does this technology convert in real time, in a real world setting, now that it's about to pop off? Then on top of that, once more, listen to this. This ensures the payment still moves, but with significant caveats. Who's reporting this? It's coming from JP Morgan. Make sure you check this out. JP Morgan is speaking about this, okay? Significant caveats. Now, hold on. Okay, so it says here, the contingency plan for Swift. Swift is offering. That's interesting. Offering. Wow. So so this is not mandatory. You have to accept this offer instead of, I thought it was just going to be automatic. Like if you just don't comply, okay, we're going to automatically convert your stuff over, but we're going to charge you. But I suppose that makes sense. You can't force them to pay fees, right? You can't do that. I mean, unless it was already in the contract. So you have to make an offer and then they have to update that contract, I'm supposing. That's interesting. So let's see. I guess we're going to get more information of who accepts this. You think most banks would accept this? We're going to find out. I mean, we're questioning now, but we're going to get the numbers later. It says Swift is offering a contingency service where non-compliant MT messages will be automatically converted to MX format, but this is a temporary measure and will incur additional charges and potential payment disruptions. Additional charges and potential payment disruptions. Uh-oh, I told you. And when this happens, those charges are really rubbing the banks the wrong way. And if there's going to be disruptions, of course, that is definitely, they're not going to be happy with that. And should be more incentivized. They should be more incentivized to come over to the new financial system, of which they're not going to experience any of that. And lower fees. We're not trying to charge you extra. Don't need to lump something on top. Remove the intermediary, lightning fast speeds, externalize liquidity, depending on how you want to use it. You use it however you want. I mean, all of those benefits. So then it says this is going to be It's going to be a very interesting 2026. We're going to learn a lot about Swift's future. It says the drawback is data loss. The translation service causes data truncation because the new ISO 20022 format is richer and more capacious than the old MT format. Data that is added to an MX message can be lost. What? You don't get these problems with the new financial. We're going to dominate, in my humble opinion. This is my humble opinion. We're going to dominate. They're going to hand that bank money over. Everything, all the pieces are being moved into place. I mean, you tell me what you think about this. All the pieces are there. So data that is added to an MX message can be lost when it is converted back to MT for a non-compliant recipient. Well over 60%, from what we know, 60% are non-compliant until we get those new numbers, of course, and then we'll adjust. We shall see. And I'm sure that when Swift comes out, those numbers, the independent sources will have their own updated numbers as well. We will weigh them against each other to find a middle ground of where the truth may be. I don't trust any one organization. The loss of structured data is what the financial community is working hard to avoid. You don't say. It says, while the network won't shut down for non-compliant banks, wow, they will. We didn't expect them to, but it will be. I don't know why they phrase things like this. This is coming from the American banker. So they always talk in a way where they do give good information, but I personally feel that they protect the banking system a lot with their words. They're very careful about how they say something, but I get it. Anyway, so it says, while the network won't shut down for non-compliant banks, they will likely face higher operational costs. So then there's that as well. They're getting charged extra by Swift. They have higher operational cost. It says increased manual intervention. So their people have to work harder now. What? Folks, this does not bode well for Swift. They're going to have to work with, either they're going to have to work with Ripple. I'm going to say Ripple because they're at the forefront. Or they could work with any of the bank coin companies, but a lot of them are coming together. Once again, Ripple works with Hedera. Lehman Baird said that. Brad Garlinghouse confirmed it. Cardano works with Ripple. We know about that. Hoskinson confirmed it. Garlinghouse confirmed it. Cardano may work with Chainlink. Hoskinson spoke on that. We'll see how that goes. So they're rapidly working together. So, I just keep that in mind when I say that they're going to work with Ripple. They should work with Ripple. I don't see any way around this. They're in trouble. Okay, let's go to a little bit of Bitcoin news here before we close out the video for today. And appreciate every single one of you being here. So this is coming from Google. It says this: Bitcoin mean reversion oscillator prints first green oversold bar in months. Bitcoin's mean reversion oscillator has printed its first green oversold bar in months, a signal that has historically aligned with cyclical bottoms and accumulation zones during bull markets. According to crypto analyst On-Chain Mind, who developed the indicator, this signal has appeared while Bitcoin is consolidating around $90,000 level, suggesting that, quote, strong hands may be quietly absorbing supply from weaker participants. Didn't I say that earlier? I told you this is a game, folks. And it's not just this. I had another article. Oh, I have it. Oh, I actually have the article up. We've been reading these articles for a long time, and it's just very strange to me. They get buried. I know they don't want people bullish on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is poised to explode astronomically. I don't say that because I'm hoping. I don't go on hope. I go on what I'm viewing, what I'm researching. I like solid things. And all of the positive catalysts are so strong. There's no way Bitcoin doesn't explode, despite, I've always said this, despite the little ups and downs it's going to have. And they know that. So they use the mainstream media to make retail sell, and that's what they did. Retail was selling heavily, while they quietly, as this person's putting it, quietly are buying supply, absorbing it. That is a great technique. And the selling acts as a cloud, an obscurer of your activities. While everybody's worried about the price going down, there's so much selling, the price going down. They don't know that people are buying, that companies are buying and getting in, because it won't make the price go up. They do it subtly, right? Until it's just happening so much and there's so little selling left that the price has to go up. But by then they're already in position. It's a brilliant plan, actually. But then you have this article here. I believe this is about Bitcoin. Oh, this is just about crypto in general, but it affects Bitcoin majorly. This is what it says. See, these articles are coming out exposing the truth. It's just that they don't get a lot of clicks and views, and that information just doesn't go viral. This article is titled "Institutional Buyers Nibbling," quote. So the other person says they're quietly absorbing it. This person says here, this is on the block.co, institutional buyers are nibbling as crypto sell-off widens, but analysts warn a final shakeout may not be done. Yeah, that's possible, definitely possible. They don't want retail, though, especially those retail whales, having too much Bitcoin, too many bank coins. It's about power and control right now before the big explosion. This is all a battle of control. The legacy system wants that control, right? So it says this. Crypto markets continue to sell off on Friday after more than $2 billion in leveraged positions were flooded. We know about that. Let me skip a little bit of that. Verbiage. Speaking on CNBC, Bitwise CIO Matt Hogan said the sell-off is being driven by a classic clash between short-term fear and long-term conviction. Quote, "It's a tale of two markets," unquote, he said. Quote, "Short-term investors see global risk-off sentiment, the DAT trade unwinding, and fallout from October 10th volatility event, October 10th. Okay. But long-term investors are starting to nibble at these prices. Right. I wish he would give a little bit more clarity. Long-term investors. It's like, you're talking about institutions? What is long-term to you? It's different for everyone. To think otherwise, I think, would be arrogant and a mistake. Let's continue. Hogan said several of the world's largest allocators, including the Harvard Endowment, we covered that. Harvard Baltimore, and Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund are watching Bitcoin's retracement as a potential entry point. Of course, while he acknowledged that a move into the mid or low, quote unquote, 70s is still possible, he argued that the market is, quote, closer to the bottom than the beginning of a pullback. All right. So now that you have the information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the money.